Members of the committee, you now have before you Senate amendment, the governor's amendments to Senate Bill 99. What is your pleasure, Representative Seeking-Scrow?
Mr. Chair, I move that when this committee does rise and report, after having had under consideration the governor amendments to Senate Bill 99, that it recommend the same be concurred in.
Representative.
The amendments that I offer ensure that the necessarily binary definitions of male and female encompass all members of the human race. For example, the addition of would produce makes clear that young children who are still undergoing biological development nevertheless fall within the definition of male or female. The amendments that I offer recognize that biological or genetic conditions, including but not limited to the circumstances of menopause, being intersex, or a cancer diagnosis requiring surgical removal of reproductive organs, do not preclude an individual from still meeting the definition of male or female. Finally, the amendments I offer also ensure that the scope of public funding restrictions matches the prohibitions on not just procedures, but on all medical treatments identified in Senate Bill 99. This ensures that the exceptions to the prohibitions apply with equal force to public funding and removes vagueness from the law as to its meaning and scope. And with that, I encourage a green vote.
Is there discussion on the governor's amendments? And please, let's keep the discussion on the governor's amendment, not debate the bill again. Representative Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in opposition to these amendments. I think that the amendments continue to grapple with an issue that we have taken up in the body this session, which is how, if, where, how, and whether to define sex. My concern with these amendments is that they further carve out exceptions to this bill. Folks may remember on the unamended bill, my concern was that we're treating children differently under the law. We continue to do so. I find the governor's amendments and his letter describing them to be pretty disingenuous. If we care about Montana children whose young minds and bodies are still developing, and we think surgical and medical interventions are bad for those children, then let's protect all Montana children. The governor's amendments, again, further narrow our prohibitions on these medical treatments and access to medical care, making it very clear that the vast majority of Montana children will still be able to, in consultation with their parents and their doctors, access care such as surgery and puberty blockers and the like, as long as it is not with regard to gender. The governor's amendments make clear that we are very specifically targeting a very small set of Montana kids without regard for the specific contexts of those kids' needs, the specific rights of those kids' parents, and the specific advice of those kids' doctors. I urge a no vote.
Representative Marler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also rise in opposition to these amendments, and I take exception to the governor's letter, although I'm not going to go into detail about that because I don't think it would be productive at this time. I do want trans youth in Montana and their families to know that you are loved, you're important, and we're not going to stop fighting for you. I'm asking all of us here today to vote no against these amendments. Show some respect for families and kids and their privacy, and please vote to keep the government out of families' private medical decisions. Thank you.
Representative Zephyr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in opposition to these amendments and to the governor's letter. In the governor's letter, he said Montanans who struggle with their gender identity deserve love, compassion, and respect. That's not what trans Montanans need from you. We need access to the medical care that saves our lives. And these are hollow words coming from someone whose amendments are going to make it harder to access that care. The bill says it does not prohibit social affirmations. That's not necessarily true. It prohibits the use of state buildings for advocating for or allowing a social transitioning. It says that it allows the access to psychotherapy that treat Montanans struggling with their gender identity. If you disallow the use of the medical care that is accepted by every major medical association. If you disallow that care and don't allow people to have access to that, the only therapy left is either A, meaningless, or B, conversion therapy, which is torture. I also want to point out, again, gender affirming care is not Orwellian newspeak, as it says in this letter. It is accepted by every major medical association. I will also say what I said down in committee earlier. This bill tries to define male and female as binary. You could not legislate binary sex any more than you could legislate that the earth is flat. Intersex people exist, trans people exist, and this bill doesn't change that. Lastly, I would say that there were conversations at the end of this, at the very end of the bill, the letter that says life-altering medical procedures should wait until they are adults. What I will say is if you are, by this bill and by what these amendments do, if you are forcing a trans child to go through puberty when they are trans, that is tantamount to torture. And this body should be ashamed. And if you vote yes on this amendment and yes on this bill, ooh, I love this. Does everyone want to stand?
Representative Zephyr, would you like to close?
Sorry, I'm yielding to the Majority Leader.
Majority Leader Vinton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I speak on behalf of our caucus. We will not be shamed by anyone in this chamber. We are better than that.
Representative Zephyr.
And the only thing I will say is if you vote yes on this bill and yes on these amendments, I hope the next time there's an invocation, when you bow your heads in prayer, you see the blood on your hands.
Seeing no further discussion, the chair recognizes Majority Leader Vinton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will note that that is entirely inappropriate, disrespectful, and uncalled for. We can debate matters civilly and with respect for each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Representative Seekins Crow, would you care to close?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have been here before discussing this very difficult topic. We do know that families are struggling right now. We do know that youth are struggling right now. And we do know that there is help out there for them. However, help does not come out in the form of medically transitioning our youth, because that is permanent. And they can't take it back. And we know that that's a time of life where there's so many changes. These amendments are good amendments. I encourage you to vote yes.
Question now arises on the motion of Representative Seekins Crow that when this committee does rise and report after having had under consideration the governor's amendment to Senate Bill 99, the same be concurred in. Those in favor of the motion vote aye. Those opposed vote no. Are there any absentee votes?
Mr. Chair, Representative Weatherwax votes no.
Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? If not, the clerk will record the vote.
Mr. Chair, 66 representatives have voted aye, 34 have voted no.
The governor's amendments to Senate Bill 99 have been concurred in. Members of the committee, you now have before you for your consideration Senate amendments to House Bill 282. What is your pleasure, Representative Galloway?
Mr. Chair, I move that when this committee does rise and report